Hello, everyone. Good
Hello.
afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 4, the latest and greatest live stream. So,
Definitely the greatest.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they get better every single time.
It
So,
only gets
sorry, I
better.
don't know why that was such a weird kind of like lost introduction there. Peter and I were literally just figuring things out until the last minute, and so apparently my brain cannot handle like the switch over. So, afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon, Paul. How's things with you?
Yeah, good. It's been an okay. I love the way we're doing this. Like we've not spoken to each other for the past
For like the
25 minutes.
past hour.
Yeah. Like just sat there, and be like, "What are we
we're
doing today?
we're
What's Salesforce?"
synthesizing chit chat here.
Yes.
So
No, things are good. Things are good.
Mhm.
It's been a fairly productive week. I've been out like running and going to the gym, like getting over like the lack of exercise. It's been quite good.
Your recovery from COVID is nearly complete.
Yes, I mean, like the way my body feels after a couple of days of going to the gym and running, like I feel like I'm about to just like collapse down again. But aside from that, it's that's just me being super. Like I don't know if you've noticed this, but they make everything in the gym really heavy. Like just need like lighter weights everywhere. People like I
Yeah.
feel much better.
That's
How about
funny.
yourself?
I was totally expecting you to go the other direction. Like, yeah, I've worked out and I'm feeling really good now. But you're like, worked out and feeling rubbish.
Yeah. Well, the thing is as well. Like so when I know it's because excuse me, because I've not been for like a period of time, and so
Mhm.
it's just like reactivating the muscles and the nerves and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make you feel like it. Just this morning when I was like, kind of, reaching to grab the shampoo bottle, and my body was like, "Nope, not doing that."
I've been going through that a lot lately because like my ideal would be getting to like 3 bike rides a week. And I've been doing 1, and when there's that much space between 2 rides, you go out on that ride and you come back and like you feel okay. It's like, okay, yeah, that was, but then the next day you really feel it.
Yep.
So anyway, so I totally feel your pain. Yeah, no, like things are doing pretty good for me. Yesterday was DevOps Streaming London, so that was a lot of fun. Uh, Probably my favorite talk was Ellie Matthewman did a kind of rundown of how LendInvest rolled out the Nebula logger in their
Ooh.
environment, which kind of gave me some kind of thoughts about how we could possibly go about uh, incorporating that into some future section. I don't know if that's a whole like episode on its own, but it does kind of seem like it could be a fun sort of addition to some of the stuff that we're going to be doing this next arc of customizations. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know if you. So I've not used Nebula Logger in anger, is what I'm going to say. I've used it like on a little few things. Did you? I posted a little video to LinkedIn this morning in my never-ending quest to try and get attendees. So hello to everyone who's joined. Hope you're all okay. So a reminder, if you have any questions or want to say anything to us all, feel free to use the chat. They should come through. Pete and I will try and keep an eye on an answer. Yeah, I posted a little video to LinkedIn this morning to try and use because there's a fairly new LinkedIn video feature that came out in September.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
seeing that.
I referred to today as the start of our Marvel Cinematic Universe arc. Um,
Ooh.
like this is Iron Man for anyone who's like Iron Man 1. Pete is Robert Downey Jr. I think that's good. I'm trying to think who was in Iron Man 1 that like lasted the rest.
Oh, well, you'd have to go with Don Cheadle.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't like say I was Pepper Potts. Then that would have been like
I
I
can
do
see it.
not have
I can see it.
I don't have Gwyneth Paltrow's like figure to just pull that outfit off.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
who else? Because
well,
unfortunately, Happy,
yeah.
he doesn't survive, does he?
He survives most of the way through, though. I mean, like,
Like, okay.
massive spoiler here for anyone that's not seen the end of like Infinity Game, Infinity. I can't remember the name.
Well, yeah. What was the last one? Endgame.
Agent Agent Force game. No, wait, no, that's a different thing. Sorry. Like for anyone who's not seen the end of like Infinity that saga, that arc. Spoiler alert: Iron Man does not make it all the way through. Self-sacrifices. Pete will
Yeah.
not be self-sacrificing at any point on this. Hopefully,
Some people
yeah,
die. Yeah, people
yeah.
have to go. That's
Um,
just how it
but yeah,
is.
so this is what I've said is going to be the start. So we, as much as this often seems like Peter and I have no plan whatsoever, and as much as that is very often, in fact, the case, we do have a
Concepts
more,
of a plan. Concepts of
yeah,
a plan.
it's because this is veering too close to like recent sort of political lines with like a guy
Sorry.
sitting there saying,
I
I've
couldn't
got
resist
concepts
that.
of the plan. Yeah, we have it, yeah. But we have an idea of how we want to try and show you a few things and how they can tie together and how we can use things that we learn in one episode or mini series through to the next.
Yeah.
And it's going to involve not just some Salesforce. We're looking at some command line stuff. We're going to be looking at some. What else do
Are
we
we
say
going
we're
to do
going to
any
look?
JavaScript?
We might do some JavaScript if you're good, only if you're well behaved and
JavaScript.
and don't self sacrifice on the stream. I think that that'll. I have to mark this as being for adults if you do. But like so we're going to do a bunch of things. It's hopefully you'll find it interesting and exciting for those watching
Yeah.
along.
I
And
think
yeah, I'm
it's, to
excited about it.
me, it's exciting because it brings together a lot of the things that a developer is going to run into, not necessarily every day, everything, but like if you stay in this career, this job for, for a while, you're going to run across, using an open source framework or writing a command line or, you know, trying to figure out whether you do a sort of UI mashup integration versus a backend integration that you surface to the UI. So like there's all these things that kind of um, go into building what today, like an application is a composite of all these different technologies that I'm excited to go through. And for me, I'm especially excited because I've always experienced, like, if I can kind of go into like an environment that's sort of self-contained and go and write some code, I'm always happiest with that.
Hmm.
But anytime you're bringing together different environments and technologies and getting them to talk to each other, I always feel a bit fraught with, like, it always feels a bit fragile. And so going through this set of episodes that we're planning for, I don't know how many it's going to be. Like, I don't think either of us know exactly,
No,
but to me, it's kind of exciting to get back to, well, yeah, it can be fragile, but how do you minimize that, or how do you mitigate that? And how do you make it as resilient as possible, and kind of all those things. So I'm excited.
cool. No, yeah, and I think the other thing I'd add to that is that there's a bunch of stuff in here that neither of us have done before, which is I think also exciting. And just to kind of hit back home on the original kind of vision of some of this stuff is that there's one of the things I find daunting still is opening up. Like I have contributed minimally to open source, and it is not because I'm a cold hard evil dead-hearted capitalist who believes that all software should be paid for and that Larry Ellison is always correct. It's because I I just find it sometimes overwhelming looking at a library that someone else has written and knowing where to start. Like it's we were looking at an API library for one of the things we're going to talk about in a minute and get into, and like just even then I was like, oh, there's like 10 files I'm going to have to go through, and 10 files is nothing, Paul. Just like get over it and like look at. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
this is a really
Yeah.
this is a really small self-contained library. But when you look at something like getting started writing like a CLI plugin for the SF command line, or using other libraries out there, and it can just sometimes feel like there's just so much to get your head around that hopefully we can show you that okay, there is a logical way of doing this, there's a
Yeah.
step-by-step way of doing it. And one of the things I'd quite like to get out of this is the ability for us to maybe take some of these longer form pieces we've done and then rework them as here's a quick 10-step item of how you build, because we'll
Yeah.
veer off and make jokes and talk about Doctor Strange and all these sorts of things as we go. But like, it'd be good, I think, to be able to then just say, well, look, we built this. This is how you go through and do it.
Yeah, and I think that's like those kind of resources are super valuable. Uh, I was toying around with building an integration to like one of the generative AI APIs a few months
Mm.
ago, and I had some ideas, but it's yeah, going back to a little bit of the inception of this idea of this code live stream that Paul and I came up with. Some of the attraction for me of doing this is I spent a good couple of years primarily in leadership, not really doing a lot of coding, and so it kind of gets me back into doing more of this. And it had been a while since I'd worked on anything, uh, any kind of integration with
Mm.
Salesforce. So there was that. But then the other thing is a lot of the code that I've written, just to remind our lovely audience, is kind of toy code. It's sample code, it's example code. It's the kind of thing you
Mm.
write in developer relations to inspire someone else who then goes and actually does it for real, right? So, and in a lot of that, example and sample writing, you don't necessarily follow the best practices for like constructing the connector between two systems, or abstracting things away, or minimizing um, API requests, or managing the connection effectively. There's all these things that you might do that I was able to kind of sort of skip and go around, and I probably should have just gone and written it, and I did a little bit, but I really wanted to take it a bit further. But I never found a good resource that was like, okay, like if I have an integration into an API like this, what's the best architecture with
Mm.
Apex? Like, how should I structure that? Should I use, should I use the factory pattern? Should I use the builder pattern? Like I went down this rabbit hole after I
Yeah.
built the initial integration, which worked fine, it worked fine,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I wanted something a bit more. And then life happened and I moved on and I never actually finished that. So I think like I'd love to come to the end of this with some, you know, some yeah, so something that somebody can go and look and watch, and in a relatively short period of time go like, all right, I'm going to integrate this type of API with Salesforce. I will structure it this way. And that's, you can't just apply that to every single thing, but have at least one opinion on one of those that's relatively easy to follow. So I also want to call out John Daniels on the line.
I know. I've just seen this. Hi, John.
Yeah, hey John, it's good to have you. And we will put that down as yeah. I think we could probably incorporate it into this arc that we're doing somehow.
Yeah, we'll have a look at
Or
that.
maybe tag it on to the end. I don't know. I think the people who are lovers and users of Nebula Logger probably would say just do it right at the beginning and you'll be able to debug faster. Based on watching Ellie's talk, I could totally see how if you've got the logger in there and you're troubleshooting something, there's some really cool features that allow you to inspect HTTP calls and
Mhm.
actually see the full contents of your request and your response, and like really cool stuff like that like I could totally see that. I don't think we're going to do that. That I think we're going to sort of get going on building it, but I love the idea of incorporating it somehow. So we'll Paul and I will mull that one over and see where we can fit that in.
Yeah, no, we have a big document full of ideas and random thoughts. Lots of random thoughts, in fact, more than
Yeah,
perhaps
it's
good
the best
ideas.
kind.
But yeah, yes. Just as a kind of excuse me, final wrap up on that point. The I came across this recently in building out my. So I'm working on a new product. Ooh.
Oh,
um, which is effectively my existing product, but for Marketing Cloud. So it's for sending messages, so SMS, Viber, WhatsApp from Marketing Cloud, and the documentation for helping you get set up to build a Marketing Cloud app is
lovely,
uh,
astounding,
yeah.
surprising.
Maybe neither of those words. It's like, and yeah, I look for the people who write the documentation. I know that you're doing,
Yeah.
the documentation in general for Salesforce is really good, but and this might just be, and I hate this whole kind of like, it might just be because I'm becoming an old like man waving my fist at a cloud. But I swear, like when I first started with Salesforce, there used to be really in-depth, detailed examples for everything that was ever coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And now probably just because there's not enough time, availability, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the documentation just isn't as thorough as one would like it to be.
And is
And
this the core Marketing Cloud, or are you doing it for one of the other bits of Marketing
I
Cloud?
mean, when I say I mean what was exact target Marketing Cloud?
Oh
Like I
yeah,
haven't
yeah. Okay.
the
I
naming convention just. I mean, what probably agent marketing Force Einstein 1.
I think
Like,
I think that's just Marketing Cloud, but
yeah.
I'm sure there's some sub designation. But a lot of the Marketing Cloud, because it was behind a paywall, there really wasn't a free
Mm,
offer for a long time. It was kind of all. It's like, okay, if you've signed
yeah.
up, you have access to it. So maybe that's just some feedback that Salesforce need to hear about. Yeah. So if anybody from Marketing Cloud is listening, we'd love to see some better documentation. Paul would anyway. I would
Well, I
help
mean, I'd
him
like
as an ISV.
again, I'd like to. I've reached out to a couple of people from Marketing Cloud and said, like, help me get this done, and I will go away and I will do a video series and blogs and everything for you. But like,
I think so. I have you reached out to Danielle Larragee?
no, I reached out to some other people more on the product side. I should probably reach out to Danielle on the
Yeah,
DevRel
because
side.
she's kind of moved on from doing Marketing Cloud developer relations and become very Data Cloud focused. But on the other hand, she was doing Marketing Cloud for a
Mm.
while, and so maybe she can help build some connections. So there you go.
I will ping her after this. Anyway, speaking of connections, like APIs, Pete,
There you
let's
go.
that is a smooth segue, people, and never let it be said otherwise. So we've we mentioned the idea of our origin story here. So what are we going to be doing? Like, should we
So
tell people what the initial idea for this
I
thing is?
think so. And so I'll kick it off, and then I think you've got some, so Paul and I were talking as we wrapped up the previous episodes, just a little revision of that, where we went through and built an initial trigger and then transformed that to a trigger handler and then transformed it into a basic trigger framework. Of course, once we got to that point, it's like, we want to keep doing this. So what are we going to do next? And we kind of put down on paper a whole bunch of ideas that when you think about it, they're sort of separate. But if you plan it the right way, it kind of becomes an arc of a story. And it begins with integration. And then we're going to explore different ways of integrating an external API with Salesforce. So we're going to start out, take a look at an API, and then we're going to sort of cycle through different phases of that. And you want to go through like what the thinking was as far as how we wanted to proceed with that, Paul? Like
Yeah.
you sort of thought it through a bit more than I did. So
I'm just bringing up my notes because
there we go.
because yeah, I can pretend that I know what I'm on about then. So the initial idea is we're going to work with an API. We're going to use the Pexels API. So for those who aren't familiar with Pexels, it's a site that's really good for getting free stock photos and videos for like projects for you to work on. They're really good. It's all free, and they have a nice API. So we're going to work with that API and just start off by looking at how we can call an API, what the components of an API request are. Like what's the header? What's a get request, what's a post request, all of these bits and pieces, taking the data back and just showing you how we work with it. We're then gonna build that out using Apex, and we'll show you how to do that first of all with kind of execute anonymous, and then put it into a proper set of classes and a framework. And one of the things we're kind of keen to do is feedback a little bit like we did last time about talking about refactoring and separation of concerns, and give a good example here of how we could switch out Pexels for Unsplash, which is another free images provider and API. So go through and do that, and get some of that data from Apex. We'll probably talk about external credentials as we go. Obviously, we'll talk about testing because we have to talk about testing, and we can talk about mock HTTP request and all of those things. And then we're going to display some of that data on a Lightning Web component. And you think that sounds amazing. You've done so much amazing work there. But wait, there's more. Obviously, with Lightning Web Components, you can make callouts from the browser itself. So we're going to then see how we would do that instead of using Apex. And we're going to have a bit of a discussion about when you would use Apex versus when you wouldn't use Apex, the pros and cons of each. Look at the difference in performance, in all of the different aspects we can get down there. And get to a nice point where I think we're going to have a couple of good Lightning components that anyone can work with to use and retrieve data if they want. From that, one of the things that Peter and I are both saying we'd like to do is talk about building out a command line tool and working on. And whilst we've got comfortable with an API, let's continue to use that API. So when we do the LWC version, I think we're going to try and use some of the NPM libraries that Pexels and Unsplash provide to kind of allow us to do that work there. Show people how to use an external library in a Lightning Web Component. And then from there, we can do the same using Oaklift to build out our command line. And once we've got our command line up and running, we're going to try and look at some nice little plugins we can use. It's an image, so we might do something with ASCII art for the image. We might do something like that.
I love a bit of ASCII art.
Who doesn't? I mean, it's the highest form of art, I think you'll find. The Louvre should just be ASCII art everywhere. It'd be also much easier to replace if Just Stop Oil throw things over ASCII art because, you just regenerate it dead quick and easy. So there's a thought. If you're on the board of the Louvre and want some more tips, just comment below. Make sure to give it a like and subscription as well, please. The Louvre. So there you go, a little thumbs up there as well. And then finally, we're going to take everything we've learned there and work on a Salesforce CLI plugin. So we're going to do a more general CLI first, and then we're going to work on a Salesforce CLI plugin. We've got a few ideas for that. So it might be retrieving a user's image and doing the ASCII art thing still. We might do a GraphQL Explorer.
I once did a ASCII art to log message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I forget why I did that.
Well, dig that one back out and we can have a look and see what that was for.
I have no idea where that is. But anyway.
So yeah, we could do that. We could also do I've always wanted to do bored Peter stiff with this, but something along a Rails generate model kind of command, but for Salesforce, so that it's a pain going in and creating fields and things through the UI. I think you should be able to do it via an API and via the command line.
I've always thought it'd be fascinating to could you do something like that where if you had the history of all the changes you've ever made to an object, you could just replay them on a deployment. And then I think would that make the deployment just last a week?
It depends because I suppose if you flatten them down, this is it. And the interesting thing for us there with that one is there's a couple of ways of doing it. Is you could either generate the XML data model out as a file to then push up and deploy, or you could make calls to the metadata API to create things individually. So there's a couple of options there for us as well. So that gets us down into the weeds there. We've now got Nebula Logger we're thinking of adding in. We have a special episode coming up in 2 weeks' time that we will be sharing more about. So just lots of stuff going on, isn't there, Pete?
Yeah, exactly. And I might take a moment and see if I can reconnect myself to the comments because I just tried to post the URLs to the Pexels and Unsplash API information so people could go take a look at that, and it failed for some reason. It says failed to post to CloudBytes TV. So let me see if I can reconnect and do that.
Would you like me to? I can ping them if you want.
Well, while I do that, do you want to go through the sort of summary of how we're going to start today? Because I think that's going to be, you've done the big picture. Where do you think we're getting it today?
Where are we actually going to go? What are we actually going to try and do today? So today, we are going to try and look at our Pexels API. We're going to have a brief talk through how that API works, how you authenticate with it. We're then going to make some requests using curl just to kind of see what our response looks like. One of the things you can do with APIs, or one of the things I do with an API whenever I start out is look at the documentation and I see if they've got one of two things, either a curl set of example requests, or if they have a Postman library. If they have a Postman library, get the Postman library. It's just going to make your life easier. It has a lot of stuff formatted. The Salesforce Postman library, for those who haven't used it, is pretty phenomenal. And won an award, didn't it? Not too long ago, I believe. I think it was the top.
So it's regularly been Postman's most cloned collection.
Well, there we go.
At least it definitely was for 2022, I want to say, or possibly 2023.
I saw, I saw our friend Philippe Ozil go and pick up an award the other week. I say the other week.
Oh, did he? So they did it again. So it must have been like that's like second year in a row then.
Yeah, he's probably just got a house littered full of Postman trophies.
And you know, to call it, shout out to Philippe. Like he is he's the one who has done a lot of work. I mean, he doesn't maintain all of them, but he's done a lot of outreach into a lot of different API teams in engineering and products to get them on board with supporting the collection. So he does some really good work there that really helps out the Salesforce developer community.
I will make sure we put a link to the Postman collection in the show notes.
Yeah.
And also, it's a little shout out to Philippe as well. We have another. So John again has just said, for the custom CLI plugin angle, I'd encourage you to get a special guest on the show, Vivek Chwala, who is the PM for the CLI and interested. Yeah, I will ping Vivek after this as well. Thank you, John. So yeah, and please, anyone, if you have any thoughts, anything, you've heard the arc. If you have specific things you'd love to see in that arc, ideas for us on what we could build or do, things you think would be good to add, change, special guests or whatever, please let us know in the comments below. And feel free just to drop a note in and say hi as well. So we're going to use the Pexels API, as I say, and today the plan is for us to go through and just make a few basic requests, and then we're going to make the same requests. So once we've got a bit comfortable with the API, we're then going to make the same requests using Apex, and then we're going to start to get to a basic Apex class where we can make that request. And we know we're going to refactor, we know we're going to improve things over time. We know we might do some of this in the background, but we're going to start off with just a simple bit of retrieving some data and getting it out there. We'll probably do a very basic Lightning web component as well, so that we can make our request and get the data back, and we'll just put an image on the screen.
Yep,
which
sounds good.
If you're a consultant and you're billing 2 hours for putting an image on a screen, that sounds like a good day.
Actually, are you thinking of doing local development for that?
I don't know if I've got the local development plugin set up yet, but we could do that. We could give that a try.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's see. I mean, one way or the other. Cool. Let's go.
I mean, it's also, I'm not sure I want to sit here and have to restart Visual Studio Code and every plugin for it for 5 minutes. Cool. So, shall we jump in and see some curl-based action? So
let's do it.
Peter, do you want to tell us what curl is?
Yeah. So I want to say it stands for command line URL, but curl is one of the commands that you can use from a command line to directly make an HTTP request. It's pretty versatile. It's found on different flavors of bash shells. So bash, Z shell, Z shell, however you want to say that. Those usually come with some version of curl.
So what we've got here, so this is just my terminal. As you can see, I know all of the best commands for it, such as the echo command. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a simple command out there. So here is one I prepared earlier. So what we have here is we've used the Pexels API. So I've gone on to Pexels. You can go there to pexels.com, or here's the link to the Pexels API in the chat now. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. That's better. And the Pexels API allows us to get a number of different. There's a number of different endpoints we can get an image by its name, by its ID. We can search for images by theme. One of the things that we were thinking of here is we might make our little Lightning Web Component kind of a simple app where you can put in a search term and it will retrieve the first image that comes up, or like the first 5 images that come up. That might be a good idea because that could have a little bit of like component composition in there. There's an idea for us. Anyway, so we're going to do something like that. The endpoint we're using here is their curated endpoint, and the curated endpoint allows you to effectively say, go through your curated collection, which I think is updated at least every hour.
Yeah, that's what they say. A couple times an hour.
And we're saying how many items we want per page. So we want 1 item per page because we just want a single image. And I've just set the page number to be number 100. I can change that to make this random to whatever number we want. We also have on here the H. So I'm going to change this to 101. We also have on here the H flag, which is for our header. What that does is that's our basic authentication here. I will be clearing out this API key straight after this broadcast. So don't try and use
get at it now, folks.
Don't try and use this API key. Let's just not do that, people. Let's just play fair. I'm going to clear the screen in a minute anyway, so if you're not that quick, you won't be able to catch it.
And if you're watching the replay, it's too late.
It's too late. It's gone. So a request, an API request is made up of 2 parts, really. There's the header and there's the body. There's also some other stuff. But let's just start off talking very broadly and badly about saying we have the header and the body. The body is typically our data we want to pass in. So it's more common for there to be a body in a post request. And immediately we've dived into another thing, which is different types of requests.
Yeah, or what are called HTTP verbs.
So can you remember all of the verbs?
Ooh, that's good. Okay, so we already said post, so that doesn't count. But there's get, patch, put, delete. Is there like an info one as well? I want to say something like that.
Not all. I don't think that info's a separate verb. Yeah. So can you remember the difference between them though? So what each one is used for?
Well, so get is get is I think the way that it's put most often is any request that is not intended to change the state of the server, right? So fetch. Was fetch one? No,
I think fetch is an API
fetch is an API. Anyway, I'm thinking of more like implementations of okay. So anyway, so get would be like if you want to fetch a single record, if you want to perform a query and get some data back, that could be a get, although it can kind of depend on how you form the query or how you pass the query in. And so if you're going to pass data in onto a get request, to the way to do that is as Paul did up here with a query string. And that starts with the little question mark at the end of the URL, and then you'll have name value pairs in there, separated by an ampersand between each one. Next is post. I'll go through, and post, again, you can pass in query string parameters, but post will have a payload that goes into it. And that's kind of the key thing. These days, most often the payload is going to be in JSON, although it doesn't have to be. And some older APIs, you probably find it to be in XML.
So I was going to say, you can also have it in raw format if it's on a web page.
Yeah, so there's like the old way that web pages used to post a form, there was kind of like this form structure or data structure that was kind of name value pairs, and that's definitely a thing as well. And I think that's still done with a post request though underneath the covers.
It's still done with web to lead and all those sorts of things, and PHP and
all those good things.
All those modern technologies, like
and OAuth 2, like the that's the core way that it supports sending the authorization requests over the wire, is using the form.
I am pretty sure that web to lead, and this is, I have no data to back this up, but I would bet, and gamble responsibly, that not wild accusatory bets like I'm going to make here, but I would bet that web to lead is technically the most popular API on Salesforce.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Anyway,
So then a couple other ones. So delete is where you want to remove a resource from the server, obviously. But then patch and put are the ones that I always get a little bit confused about. What really is the difference between those? The thing that I know in the world of Salesforce is if you want to correlate a REST-based API request to what's the underlying DML that happens in Salesforce, between patch and put, I don't remember which one, but one of them is an update, and the other one is an upsert, and I don't know which one's which. So I would look. That's one of those ones where RTFM would be for me. So
do you know how I remember this? Because I
okay. Do we have a mnemonic? I love a good mnemonic.
It's nothing as exciting as a mnemonic. It's just a boring way of remembering things. Sorry. Sorry to disappoint here, but so when I was writing, so I did a lot of writing about APIs and things for mastering Apex programming, and I did and for learning Salesforce with Apex, and I've done when Apex REST was first a thing, I did a few talks at Dreamforce, and the way I remember it is that one of the things you've said a lot here, Pete, that I don't think people, just to explain to people, when we talk about a resource, that URL that we're on about is a unique resource identifier. That URI, in fact, we're on about is a unique resource identifier, not a URL. And that is it's like a database identifier is the way to think about it. It's like a unique place that this thing lives. And it could be a file, it could be a record, it could be a web page, could be whatever. When you put, you are overwriting, you are saying, put what I give you into this place. And that is an update, or no, upsert, because you're saying, if it's there, overwrite it. If not, create it. That's a put. If you are saying, here's the values that I want you to add or update on this resource, it's a patch.
Okay.
So you're either putting something there and replacing it, or you are patching it by adding on extra information or updating that information. And that's the way I've kind of remembered it.
So it's kind of a mnemonic.
Yeah, I mean, a
little bit. Mnemonic light.
Yeah. And it was, what's the guy's name? Roy Bradbury? REST. Where did it come from? Where did it go? It was there was a chap who came up with the original idea of REST that you should definitely go and read about. Roy Fielding came up with the original idea. REST is representational state transfer. It's brilliant but simple is the way to think about it. So anyway.
And not a protocol.
No, it uses the HTTP protocol.
Yeah. So very cool.
We have our URL here, and we have our request, and it's a GET request, and we have our authorization header here. I also have some magic, funky command line stuff here, which is a pipe character, and the phrase JSON PP. And JSON PP is the JSON pretty print tool, and the pipe character in a Unix-based system like this, and I think now in Windows as well, but I can't remember truthfully.
PowerShell, and I think even the original CMD, they both support piping.
Yeah, sorry, I've just resized the window slightly, and now it's evidently decided, what is going on here? Oh man, there you go. And what the pipe symbol does is it takes the data from one command that's just run and pushes it into the next command. So it's just going to print out our JSON in a way that a human can read it rather than a machine. So let's press the button and see what we get.
If that pipe symbol is news to anyone, I've done a bunch of talks about the command line, and I talk about how that works. So
yeah, they are.
We can share that link as well in the notes.
I'm just writing down timestamps so that I can do so. So here's our data that we get back. So for those who aren't familiar with JSON data, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And you will notice that you could take this and create a JavaScript object from it if you so wished. And this is quite nice and compact. I don't think it's too crazy a data set. I think it looks pretty cool. So we are gonna just check to see what this image looks like. So I'm just gonna use that URL there, and I've just realized I've shared only that screen with you. So let me just share the entire screen, and voila. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. This is our picture. In our API as well, we have the link to the original, the medium, the large. So if we just do the original here as well, which is the one we're going to use, and we remove the quotes, takes us to that image.
Lovely.
Where in the world do we think that is?
Oh, now we're playing GeoGuessr?
Yeah.
I love GeoGuessr.
GeoGuessr is one of my favorite games.
It's so much fun.
For those who, I mean, should we just stop doing Salesforce and become a GeoGuessing stream?
that should be like yeah, we could probably do that for like at least a couple minutes some episode.
We'd probably get far more viewers and followers as well for
GeoGuessing. I'm guessing it's somewhere like in Spain because of the street sign up there, but
via
could be
South America, maybe
Italy. Yeah, I'm going with Italy or Spain on that one.
Yeah, I think
I don't think South America would have that style of street.
Immobiliare de Porticia. This is where my limited. I take Spanish lessons, and I can not see anything here that is actually useful.
Yeah, and there's nothing like that moment in GeoGuessr when you actually see the flag of the country, and then you're like, "Oh God, is that Slovenia or Serbia?"
My favorite one is when a van drives past or a bus, and it has on there like
.br.
Yeah, or no, even so like Buenos Aires buses. And you're like,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
There was one recently where it was some square in Dublin, and I just I poked around enough that finally it was like, oh my God. And I got it like 2 seconds before I ran out of time. All right.
As a really stupid random aside story here, I play a video game called Football Manager where you
okay.
And 1 year I was managing the Indonesia team in the Indonesian second division, because that's how you roll on that game. And I was sort of playing GeoGuessr like 9 months later, and this name came up on the screen. I was like, that's my local rivals. And so I'm there sat playing this with my wife.
Funny.
My wife sat there, was like, what do you mean your local rivals? You can't because it was just this one word, and then the rest of the screen was in I think it's Sanskrit or in a non-Latin alphabet. So I couldn't read anything else. I was like, it's got to be around here somewhere. And I managed to find it in Indonesia, and it was like within sort of 2 miles. And she was like, that is ridiculous that stupid game has taught you that. But
yeah, there's been some really random stuff that have led me to get some pretty close guesses too. So
it's when you get it it's the end of your road, and then you're like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we're going to use. We're going to use this now. So our curl command works pretty well. We get some nice JSON data back. And yeah, I think this is a good way of just seeing what data we get back normally. Again, if there was a postman, we might have used that to help us get this data representation back. But yeah, I think that works quite well. Any additional thoughts or things on this, Pete, before we?
No, I don't think so. I think the one thing that is maybe worth mentioning is, when you get a request back like this and you're using a third-party API, and how much is going to happen for somebody building a Salesforce app? I don't know, but if you're building a consumer app or something like that, attribution is always really appreciated. And so something like this, this could apply in other use cases and not exactly in this use case, but oftentimes there's going to be information and other metadata that come with your HTTP response that could be key in using that API, either in a best practice way or sometimes in a legal way. So those are always things to kind of pay attention to. Like right there, the photographer and the photographer URL, that's obviously somebody who took the time to take the photo and actually make it look pretty nice and upload it. So, responsible use of APIs is always something to think about.
Definitely. And make sure you read any legal terms before you start building things.
Which we did actually. So
we did spend time doing that. This is
yeah.
the thing with an API like this. You can just sit here for hours just like copying and pasting URLs. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Who needs generative AI when the world looks this good?
The world is the best generative AI there is.
I loved finding things like this, like just this one person's like, I've seen my chance.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on that photo forever. Cool.
Yeah.
So now that we've got some data back via the API, I think we want to start looking at maybe putting this into that Salesforce thing.
That Salesforce thing.
So we have two options here. Do we want to use this random API to start off with, like random, like our API to just get a random curated photo, or do you want to do a search option? Because we can, I think, why don't we start off with a random one just for us to look at getting it shown on the page with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, I think just something really basic like that sounds good.
Okay, well, let us move over, excuse me, into Salesforce then. Well, more specifically into the code.
A Lightning Web Component?
Yes. Well, should we start off with some Apex to do our call out? And then we can switch to displaying that in a nice LWC.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
So let's start off with a new file. A new window, sorry. I'm just going to zoom in for those watching along at home. Again, thank you everyone who's watching along with us. I can see we had a few more people join as we've been going as well. Please say hi in the comments and let us know where you're joining from. And for those watching along afterwards, hello to you as well. So we want to build out a pretty basic HTTP request, don't we? So what sort of objects or classes are we going to be working with here then in Apex?
Well, there is the, what is it? HTTP request and HTTP response. Those are kind of the core engine behind making a call out from Salesforce, although there's always a little bit of metadata to configure.
There's always a little bit of metadata. Yeah. Hola, Anthony from España. And depending on which part of Switzerland you're in, Project Next, it could be bonjour, could be guten Tag.
We have
any remote.
Yeah, very good.
Werner. Okay, is Werner German part? I'm terrible with geography for languages. Apologies. Grüezi. Okay, there we go.
Grüezi.
Good learning. There you go. First Romansh lesson there.
Willkommen im. Sorry, my German's letting me down. I've not been doing Duolingo with German for a while, so.
Swiss German. Oh, there we go. And hey, John from the USA.
Tu n'as pas de chance. Je parle français, mais pas l'allemand.
I speak very bad English. That's about it for me. Bad English, bad Apex.
Hablo un poco español.
Hablo un poco también, pero mi clase es martes, no es el viernes. No, lunes, martes, miércoles. What's Thursday? Viernes? No, viernes is Friday.
Jueves.
Dios mío. Hello to the Johns as well from the US of A. All right, so let's actually start
back to the language we do know.
Well, as we will see, the language we pretend to know. So the way this works is you have to start by creating a HTTP request object. And the things you're going to need to do, we are not going to use the Java extension pack. Thank you, VS Code. things we need to do is, first of all, is set the URL, which I think is set endpoint, isn't it? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. This is where ChatGPT comes in and replaces me. So we're going to set our endpoint, and we're going to choose number 75. Cool. And then we're going to do our request. Oops. Dot set method. I think it defaults to get anyway, but I always like to just be
Yeah,
explicit.
I would always. There are so many things like that where if there's something implicit, I would almost rather I'd always be explicit, just to, especially for somebody who's new or new to the language. I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. So then we're also going to set the header, and I can never remember if we set this as a single string or if it's a key value pair. I think it's a key value pair.
That's what I seem to recall, but again,
so quick. I'm just opening the docs in the background. Set header. Yeah, it is key value. So it's going to be authorization. And it is just authorization. And we then put in my long string here. Okay. Now I'm going to cut that and hide that just because we're going to have this up on screen for a while. And, there's going to be someone that's going to try something, isn't there? So I think that's all we need for our request, isn't it? We need a new HTTP object. Which I always find this the most redundant line of code I write in anything. Like HTTP equals new HTTP. And I could give it a better name. I just never know what else to name this. You're on mute, Peter.
I still don't know why they didn't just make that static.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
It's literally the only thing that class does, but
yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
And then we're going to do response RESP equals.
Yeah, if anybody out there on the call has any better object-oriented insights than I do about why do you think they didn't make the HTTP request method, the HTTP send method, I should say, a static method on the HTTP class. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions.
Oh, system. Oh, come on. Yeah, there we go. System dot.
Is that a new feature in Salesforce? You get access to the file system?
I would love it. This is a feature where we turn off any of the Agentforce, Copilot, anything like that.
Yeah.
Right. HTTP. So system dot. Thank you. Debug, and I'm going to response dot get body. Okay, I'm just going to output that, and I think this should work fine for us. Don't see anything that's going to pop out of my head here that's saying this shouldn't work. For those that aren't aware, one of the nice things you can do in VS Code is just execute an anonymous block of text like this. Surprised how many people sometimes don't realize this. It's just quite a nice little feature, I think.
Yeah, I do like
runs
that
away.
quite a bit.
Okay, so I know there's going to be an error. Oh, I know there's going to be two errors.
Yeah.
So,
anyone want to guess
error,
what we didn't do?
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a hint right there.
Oh no, I know there's another error in this code that's going to cause problems. Yeah, it's.
Oh well, you didn't put the key back. That was one thing.
That is our error.
But there's another one.
No, that's that, and then this one here. So, remote site settings. Pete, what are remote site settings? Good spot, Anthony. You're on mute again, Peter.
God, keep doing that. I didn't realize that was Anthony from Spain. I've known Anthony for 13 or 14 years. He was in a very early training class that I taught when I first started at Salesforce. So,
Oh wow.
yeah. So remote site settings are a mitigating feature that makes it so that nobody can just like willy-nilly make a request to an external HTTP endpoint. But even though that's how we're starting, I'm guessing we're not going to finish that way.
No.
Yeah. Because
No.
there are other features that also give you that protection, but they supersede remote site settings because they give you additional functionality, which we'll get to probably a little bit later.
Yeah. So here is Peter was my Apex guru back in the day. Peter
Back
still
when
is
I
an
knew
Apex
Apex.
guru.
So
I
yeah.
know. Peter's still the man. So this is some very basic HTTP code. So should we stick this into a class somewhere?
That makes a lot
And
of
then
sense.
yeah, cool. Right. Would you like to take over
Yeah,
and
sure.
create the class for us?
So let me new Apex. Oh, I'm not getting Apex commands.
Do you want me to create it for you and then?
Hang on, let me see why that is.
So for those not aware, Peter and I are live sharing. You can see Peter's little
Here we go.
icon here. So we can work
Manage
together.
trust. Okay, so I think I hadn't turned on trusted workspace. So now if I go in and type Command Shift P, Apex, there we go. Yeah, and that's just kind of a cool, Apex static analysis. That's really weird. It's not giving me new Apex class. Let me try one more time. Create. Oh, it's almost like it doesn't recognize that I'm in a project.
Well, maybe I wonder if it's because the project
Yeah,
is running locally.
why don't you go ahead and run that?
What would you like the Apex class to be called, Peter?
Oh, we're doing pexels, right?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just do like call it Apex callout to keep it really generic to begin with.
Cool.
We can always refactor that away.
Cool. There you go. You have your class.
All right, let's go find that and bring it up for
There you go.
me. Yeah, I think I still need to open it on my end. Where are we?
Yeah.
Refresh.
As a reminder as well, while Peter's opening this up, for anyone that is watching this now or in the future and wants to find the the code we write, excuse me, we do put it up to GitHub. I will put a link to the GitHub in the show notes as well in a second.
I'm just going to make this a static void. Get picture. So we'll keep it super, super simple for now. And then how come I'm not seeing the code? Did you? That's really weird. I don't see. I'm gonna have to rewrite everything. So
I've not. It's not a saved file. So 1 minute. If I do this,
there we go.
if I paste that there for you, there you go.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Now I see what you mean. Clean that up a little bit, and that we don't have you connected an org to this yet?
Yeah, it should all be connected.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. You already executed it as anonymous, so that makes sense. So at this point, I should be able to make this call, right?
Should be able to make this call, yeah. If you save it and then run it.
Yep. So that's saved. So if I go
1
back,
minute. Let me save it because I've got save on deploy. I don't think you do.
oh,
Deploy on
what?
save.
Deploy and save. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, you should be
if
good
I
to
go
run it.
back to our previous file and just do apex callout dot get pixel pick.
I can't see that.
Really? Yeah. So I'm running into the same thing. Like that file. Is it because it's unsaved? Maybe.
Yeah, John's just made a good point. If I save it, let me just save this as
Yeah.
into WhatsApp. Is it in? No, it's in there. Where's the scripts file folder? There's a default one, isn't there? In
So
Sandbox.
Anthony has a theory about save being static or send being static.
Ooh.
That's could subsequent calls to send be contaminated from a previous call. That's an interesting thought. I I'd want to say more about like how you would see that contamination taking place. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like it's one of those maybe there's some unseen side effect if it was static. But say more about that, Anthony. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. Okay, so we now have a script somewhere.
Yeah, in scripts there should be one called Pexels callout example.
There we go.
Apex. And you are free to change away on that. Do you know what I probably need to do as well for you though? Is excuse me a second while I just go and grab that API key that I have just lost again.
Now,
you are going to need.
In yours, you did the system.debug in there, which makes sense. Yeah, I guess I'll just keep it like that for now, as opposed to like changing this to pass it back out and doing the debug in the anonymous Apex. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Do you want me to execute it for you?
No, let me see if I can. Now that we've got
I don't know if it will show up on my screen though, will it?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, go for it then.
Et voila, we have the very same. Oh, this is a different picture though, isn't it? So where's the original?
You should be able to open it up in VS Code with that link.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the link to the original. There's one of these files that's marked as original, and that's the one I want rather
Portrait
than
landscape, tiny, small, medium.
Am I just being blind?
Original, right after the SRC. So it's on about the third line, about halfway to the right.
1, 2, 3. Ah, there we go. Thank you.
You bet.
Voila.
Ooh, marigolds. It almost looks like an ofrenda, like from like Dia de los Muertos in Mexico.
Ooh.
Like a.
See, this is an educational stream, everyone. You're not just learning Apex.
You too, if you've watched the Disney movie Coco, would know what an ofrenda is.
I have not watched the Disney movie Coco.
Oh, you haven't? Oh my god, it is like one of the best ever. Yeah,
it's
the music. Yeah,
I had this conversation with. I was out with some friends the other week, who, like to clarify this, they all have children of various ages, that are above the age of like sort of 5 and below the age of I don't know like 13. I don't have any children. I don't have a goldfish. I have a wife, and like we manage to look after each other, and that's about it. Barely. Like I'm a low functioning adult.
Know your limits. That's important.
Exactly. And yeah, they were just like, "Oh, have you not?" They started saying something, and I was like, "I have no idea what you're on." It was something from Moana, and then another thing from Frozen. They're just like, "Have you not seen Moana?" I was like, "No." And then like their daughter was like, "Have you not seen Frozen?" I was like, "No." And like we were away with some friends the other week, and they were like, "Have you not seen The Snail and the Whale?" I was like, "I don't know how to do. Like, I don't have small children. Why would I have sat there and watched The Snail and the Whale? Or like, I have nieces and nephews, and like occasionally, I learned what the Gruffalo was like not that long ago, and apparently the Gruffalo has been a thing for like 15 years or so. I had no idea what the Gruffalo was until literally 2-3 months ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, like why would I?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It's it's to me it's a little bit like me turning around to I suppose to these people, like to those people with parents, and being like, those parents being like, "What do you mean you don't know about like this Netflix series or this thing? Like, the thing that I get. What do you mean you don't know about this new restaurant that opened in town and only
Yeah.
opens? Yeah,
So you don't know what to do if you give a dog a donut.
I have no idea what that means. That to me could be anywhere from like a joke to an innuendo. I do not know where you are on that spectrum, but
Which does remind me, one of the APIs we looked at was a dog pick API, but we opted against that one. So for
I mean,
something
look,
like this,
the fact that I can make Marvel like universe references is probably about as close to the cultural zeitgeist as I get. Like,
well, all I would say is like, Disney do an amazing job of keeping parents entertained
yeah.
while they take their kids to films that the kids love too. So yeah,
No, I have to. It's not that I don't. I watched Inside Out on a plane a few years back, and
oh
that was
yeah,
really good.
yeah, that is actually that. Yeah, I identify with that.
Yeah, but yeah, no, yeah. So yes, there's a bunch of things that just like
Yeah,
it's
cool.
like when it's the same. What was that again? Someone said to me about like a pop star the other week, and it was like, "Oh, do you not know who this is?" And I was like, "No." And they were like number one, like sort of for half of last year. I was like, oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
There you go.
it's like when what was the Charlie XX thing about being Brat this year? Like
It was Brad Summer.
yes, I had no idea what that was when someone said to me that something was Brat. I was like, you mean like that they are like a brat, like in a negative way, or like
Supposedly Kamala Harris was Brat too, but
well, I mean, yeah,
Brat got trumped by fat, I guess.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's I just like the whole like a lot of these things just like if Taylor Swift wasn't someone that had been around for actually quite a long time, I'd probably not know who Taylor Swift was.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of me being a shut-in.
The only thing that keeps me up to date on pop music is this great podcast called Switched on Pop. So I'm a big fan of it. And then like I'll get my taste of what's current, and then I kind of go back to my normal playlist.
There you go.
Yeah.
I should probably try. My wife's like really current and up to date with things.
Okay.
I'm just like, nah. Like
I have one son who's completely like out of touch. Although I recently realized he's much more politically aware than I had any idea, which was very cool. And then the other one is like super switched on to like the current musical zeitgeist. And so to stay up with him, I try and like keep a little bit of tabs on like who's current, just so I can like have some kind of conversation with him.
just so you can walk in and say, "Hey, son, are you having a brat summer?"
That wasn't his thing. It wasn't his zeitgeist. That's all I could say. But yeah,
just love that. Hey, you're winning, son. Hey, you're having a brat summer, son.
having a brat summer.
Yeah. Again, like politics zeitgeist, though, I feel like I'm very up to date on the pulse of that. But most people don't give a damn about like what's the current stage of the reading of this bill. Like no one cares. Like it's what you
Did
know.
you catch PMQ last week? I mean,
I did. I PMQ is like my little Wednesday catch. I enjoyed it.
Oh, he's a PMQ's junkie.
Yeah, I'm a sort of bit of a politics nerd. Anyway, people are here to listen to Salesforce.
There we go. Yeah, we're totally
we're just going to
down the
start
rabbit hole.
plummeting down viewers now. So apologies, people.
Yeah. Right.
So we have now got a call being made, and we're getting some data back. So this is good. So I think the next thing we want to try and do with this is, should we? So we have two things we could do here. Do we want to first of all make this use external credentials? Because I think that's a better idea in general than ever doing like just remote site settings and having like we have an API key here that is hard coded. This is a bad practice for anyone who's looking. Bad practice. Don't do this.
And this is one of those things where like if you're using version control and you ever check that in, it's there forever. Like, so, and
There
there are
was a
people who literally go through and they like troll through like white hat hackers. And actually I think GitHub has just gotten better at looking for these things and like notifying you if they find something that looks like it with whatever their AI algorithm is. But yeah, like if it's in any check-in ever on a public repo, like you've just exposed your like secret to the world.
Oh yeah, like you there's just so many places where you can just grab them. I'm sure there was a thing I remember reading about like not that long ago. Someone scraped and found like there was just millions of API keys that you could just
Yeah.
get hold of, and like for fairly large production scale things.
There was at one point, like I went to what's the name of the Next Web conference in about 2016
Yeah,
in Amsterdam. It was a great conference, and I watched this one white hat hacker give a talk. And like the second thing he talked about was a bounty that he had gotten because he found somebody's API key or something like that, that someone had, or no, I think it was a username and a password for an admin that somebody had checked in to their GitHub repo, but was a Salesforce app. So, and like the first place they went to was Salesforce. Salesforce was like, this isn't our app, but like, you know, get in touch with that customer, please, kind of thing. I forget how it was resolved, but eventually, like, he got the bounty and, you know, it was resolved. But, um, you know, like that was something that I think early on in the open source days, people just weren't paying really close attention to. And so you check something in and kind of go on and do your thing. And then, you know, you'd eventually refactor that hard coded key out of there, but it was like too late. It's like,
yeah.
it's there.
It's
So
that. This
yeah.
is why you need to rotate these things. I think that like one of the things that kind of reminds me of is there was a lot of stuff. One of the things that I know you and I chatted about with this series, in fact, was I feel like there was a period of time when perhaps when just Salesforce connecting via REST was maybe a bit new, but there was a lot of like really cool talks people were doing. Like Jeff Douglas did a ton about connecting like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and all sorts to Salesforce to make it do stuff. And
Mhm,
um, the guys from Big Ass Force did a drone sample where you could like make a drone move using Salesforce, and
mhm.
there are a lot of really cool demos like that. But I wonder how many of them, like, I mean, I don't think those guys ever leaked credentials because they were very smart, cool dudes.
Yeah.
But you know, I wonder how many of these cool kind of setup projects where you were getting it connected to your coffee machine ended up with your coffee machine's API keys being on
Or
the.
or like an Amazon skill or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's there was a thing that I remember reading not that long ago as well about like one of the big consultancies, and I'm not going to say who I think it is, just in case I'm wrong and I don't. Yeah, we have libel laws here, so let's not
Yeah.
do that.
No need
Um,
for that.
yeah, but one of the big consultancies had like a bunch of files found that they'd left in like a public S3 repository somewhere, and they just not set the permissions up properly, and they were like gigabytes of customer data.
Oh god.
Easily done. And like, you know, it's, you know, and I'm not saying this because it's like, oh, look, it's a big consultancy. It's like, you know, they're a place that would have had more checks and balances, I normally feel. So, you know,
It's just so easy if you're just not really paying attention to just
yeah.
do that by accident. I can't tell you how many times I've like done that. Well, I mean, it's not that many, but there've definitely been, you know, times where I've done my check-in and like pushed, and then I was like, oh god, like why did I do that? And then, you know, you're forced going back, and you know, I think usually I've only done it on relatively
Yeah.
recent repos, and so you just basically, you know, kill git and you like reinitialize and, you know, recommit and all that stuff. But if you're in the, you know, in a fairly mature project, like now you're talking about having to unpick and like go back to the like figure out which which actual commit to go back to, and like
Hmm.
it's so messy. So just don't do it, folks.
Yeah. And
All
for
right.
anyone wanting to now, please go to Peter's GitHub, and I think it's just P Chittum. You'll find all sorts of API keys there. Start making his like microwave start flashing and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Fortunately, any of those orgs would probably be dead if I'd ever done that. So, so are we gonna
Cool.
do this external credential thing?
Yes. So
Now,
External credentials.
yeah, an
So external
interesting thing about this, like external credentials are newer, and before that they were called stored credentials, or there was
named.
named credentials. Yeah. So there was actually a speaker who came to the Salesforce developers group recently that did a great presentation on this. And I'm going to see if I can look up his name. I want to say it was Paul Kissick. Um,
Okay.
but keep an eye out for that on the Salesforce London Salesforce Developers Group YouTube channel. That talk should come out soon, and he kind of went through his whole thing about moving from named credentials to external credentials. So it was definitely a good talk.
Cool. Well, we'll look forward to that. And if I can find it, I'll put a link to that
Yeah,
somewhere on the screen now.
it may not be published for a few weeks, so that one may not go in there. But
Okay, cool.
although we could put the YouTube channel for Salesforce Developers London, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. So to get to external credentials, you have to go to named credentials in the setup menu. So this makes it completely non-confusing. We're going to give it a label and a name of Pexels because we're inventive, and this is going to use basic auth. So you have a number of different options for auth here. Basic auth is what we're using, where you are just literally passing, excuse me, the word authorization and then some information. You've got custom, where you've written your own, and you have a handler for doing that auth. JOT, so JWT is JSON Web Token. It is pronounced JOT. And that is just where you have a specific token. It's one of the OAuth mechanisms, so you can pass that backwards and forwards. You have no auth when you are just hitting a public API with no authentication, which is always
Rare.
always the most scary option.
Mhm.
And then you've got OAuth 2, which is very, very standard. And they've added an AWS signature version 4, which is for when you're connecting to an AWS client. So I think
That's really handy because that that's
was a
kind
nightmare.
of the default authorization now. I was actually just playing with this AWS llama model recipe that the Salesforce AI team, they put out a bunch of recipes for connecting to different external models. So yeah, that's really handy.
We should try and do one of those on an episode at some point.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah. When you started saying llama, then I assumed you were going to say lambda, and that's one of my current bugbears is how everything has similar names.
Yeah. Llama, Lambda.
Cool. So here we go. We have our external credentials set up. Now I think we have to add our principals, don't we?
I'm not clear on this actually. So
because I think I'm trying to remember the best way of doing this.
Obviously, I don't remember from the developer group I went to like 2.5 weeks ago.
I wonder if we can just do it as a custom header here. That might be the best way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you need, right? So
yeah, let me just do that. Voila. Cool. So we have our custom header in there, which is our name and key. Superb. So how do we now use this, Peter, in our code?
So this is one of those, like, I've not used like a lot of the named credentials or external credentials, but I know there is an Apex class and an API that you can use to go and basically get that. And then you make I forget exactly how it gets incorporated into the HTTP request though. So actually that might be, so this might be fun to, do you want to like walk me through this and I can have a go?
Yeah, so this is one of the nice, really simple things. Because I find this incredible every time I've done this.
Okay.
Let me just hop back over here a second. So we have our name credential here called Pexels.
Okay.
If you go into here and before the / where I've just deleted, if you type in the word callout.
So right there in the inside of the string. Okay.
Yeah. call out, and then a colon,
Mhm.
and then pixels with a capital P. I'm pretty sure, and I'm just checking. I'm just looking at the documentation in the background to make sense. But that should do it.
Really? It's that simple, huh?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that every time I look at that, I'm like, no, can't be that.
I just
Surely
saved it.
not. Oh, where you've just hit save, it has deployed on
There we
Salesforce.
go. Yeah.
Cool. So, should we try running this again now and seeing if it works?
Waiting with bated breath.
System could not access the endpoint. Ooh. Well, the name
Oh,
credential
do we need
credentials
to
might.
give access to the
We
external
do.
credential?
How do we give access to it? Because there's no. Let me see. Is it in
So
the?
adding your custom header, creating the name credential, using an Apex.
I believe I'm going to create a permission set for this because that's the way we should be doing things. I spelled pixels correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Anthony's confirmed I'm on the right path.
okay. Add it to a permission set. Lovely.
Ooh. Name credential, is it under now external credential principal access? There we go. Ah, now it's saying we don't have a name principal here. Now the problem is there is no username and password for this basic auth. Is there?
Yeah. Go back to the permission set really quickly.
Mhm.
And if you click on the down arrow by external credential principal access, was there
Mhm.
another just external credential? No.
External data source.
Okay, I thought I saw something, but
I can try typing external again, see if it. External data sources, user external credentials. What's that? Ah, I don't know if I think that's a per user one. Not the same thing. Yeah, I feel like we've got to have a set of a name principle in here. I feel like I came across this before and found this to be a limitation with the external credential setup where I prefer name credentials. But I wonder. I'm just going to try something a second, Peter. I'm going
okay.
to
All right.
delete this.
I'm looking too, so I'm gonna start going through the docs to see.
Yeah, see where we've gone wrong. I'm just wondering if it has to be a custom one. Here we go.
Yeah, see this search that I found is specifically for AWS. And the thing, like, like I want to pursue this because named credentials are being they're being EOL'd in the not too distant future. So
Yeah.
clearly there must be a way to do this. Create an external credential.
Yeah, I found a help article here, which is name credential schema, blah, 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 blah. Storing, custom, marketing team. Yeah, I found it.
Okay.
Okay, let me just edit this and I'll show you what we need to do. I think I figured it out. I can't edit that. I should have chosen a better name than authorization. Let's just agree on that front. So if I go down to external credential principal access here
Mm-hmm.
and edit now, there we go. So what I should have done is where I've named this credential authorization, I should have named this like the name of the principal. So this would have just been admin or default or whatever. And then I put the custom header in. So there's a document here I found that I'll just share in the chat as well for anyone looking for it later on. Anyone who comes across this, and that's how it should work. So 124 named creds, and that's London Dev Talk. Cool. So that should now be in the permission set. Save that. And obviously we need to assign it.
Oh, that Chatter logo is so funny.
I'm gonna miss Chatter. I like genuinely Chatter was, I think, a fantastic feature. I know I'm like one of about 3 people that think that in the world now, but
it was an incredibly powerful way to inside of Salesforce, like the way that it was used, like massively powerful way to connect people. And even still, like even once they turned it off in the main Salesforce org, the chatter around records and like the internal engineering org at Salesforce, there was so much valuable information in there. So how are we doing?
We're getting an error that says cannot access. Excuse me, cannot access the endpoint. Callout couldn't access the endpoint. You might have the required permissions, or the name credential pixels might not exist. So this is our. I wonder if is it different for using external credentials versus use.
Like you have to include the principal.
Possibly. I'm wondering if I've just assumed that it is. Where are we? Come on. There'll be a way of just using this in Apex.
I'm surprised that I'm failing to find just like how to create a named credential and like more information about that in the docs as well. Like the search isn't turning up like a sort of handy step by step. Here's the context thing. So that's interesting. And maybe it's under named credential. So all the examples are very specific to like, here's how to do it for Azure, and here's how to do it for AWS, and here's the contracts integration. But there isn't just a, hey, let's talk about named credentials.
I wonder if we don't have access to the object, and I think that might be it. Yeah, there's an object. That object we found a minute ago, user external credentials. We need read on that.
Okay.
Let's just try this again. Nope, still cannot access. Anyone in chat got any ideas where we're being daft here? I mean, I'm going to give view all. Like, it shouldn't require me to give view all, but let's just roll with that. Nope, still can't access. I wonder, I wonder if this needs to change though. Instead of being callout / pexels, I wonder if it's something else, like, is it $credential? Where are we? Apex.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into Apex recipes and see, because they've got some call out recipes. Named credentials.
They've only got name credentials everywhere. I cannot see custom like external credentials.
Oh, that's actually just the named credential itself. If I go into classes, yeah, it looks like they only use a named credential right now. Well, maybe to get this solved for today, we do a named credential. I had sort of hoped to do the external credential.
Let me
And
just can I just try one
yeah.
thing real
Definitely.
quick? Just see. This guy's called it.
Integration recipes, call out recipes.
Let me just see. So if I do. I'm just looking at someone's Stack Overflow where they've said about something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, principal access. Sure that any user may run your as added to the external credential or directly in the profile. External credential name dot okay. Right.
Did you
I
have to
think
name the principal?
so. I think what we need is in here. This is called dot pexels dot authorization. Let me just try
Okay.
this.
Yeah, rock on.
Which is
Oh, interesting.
like I don't, but the dollar credential doesn't really have anything in it. Like when I, where would dollar, in the Apex reference guide,
Uh-huh.
where would like dollar is system, isn't it? When you're using,
I didn't think dollar was like a scoped variable
well, I'm
in,
looking. Let me
in
just
Apex. I mean, I'm used to using it and seeing it in Visual Force and obviously like other like
yeah.
formula or interpolation kind
So
of
this
features.
is the this is where so you set your request, call out name credential name.
Okay.
But if I come down here, there was someone here saying, where was it?
I'm having this recollection now. Paul not only did his talk, he actually posted something on, I think, on the Nebula Consulting blog. So let me see if I can go and find that. Maybe he. Uh, there's just been a lot of chit chat since that, and I'm not finding it in my.
Just trying to see if I now have access to this. Yeah, Pexels API, principal access there. Ah, 1 minute. We don't actually have any. Yeah, this has zero. Oh,
There's a revelation.
yeah. This has no link for any. Right. I think if we do this, this is going to work, and I'm not super happy about it, but it'll work. So it's API. So it's HTTPS.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
his named credential, I'm looking at his blog post, and his named credential is using browser flow. So it's maybe not a direct.
Just go try that a minute. I don't. There's nothing. Oh, what's it saying here? What's the problem? $credential system.credential. Yeah, so consider using name credentials. I'm trying to. Couldn't be trying harder. $credential.external key name. Where am I going wrong here?
Okay, so getting started, first step is create your principal for your external credential.
Done that.
Yeah. And delegate access to the credential via assignment either on the profile or permission set managed under external credential principal access. We did that. For namespace packages, make sure you allow your namespace. We don't have to worry about that. And then grant read edit access to user external credential object. Did you add edit access to the user external credential?
Didn't, but I can do read and edit.
It does say that in his
Okay.
without access, regular users won't be able to use the credential. Custom profiles still need to be, so if it's a standard profile.
Yeah, I can see that I have access to it, so that's fine.
Okay.
Is he using external credentials or name credentials? This is
External
where I think
credentials. Yeah.
Okay. How does he get the URL? Like, so where I'm thinking, Pete, is that I think we can get this part of the credential out fine using some magic dollar credential, blah 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 thing.
Yeah.
But this API, this URL doesn't exist anywhere. Like on that external credential, we have nothing here that says anything to do with.
Right. That's like a kind of an obstacle.
Yeah. So I'm just like, well, do we have to create a new one here? Yes. Aha.
Oh. Did I skip over that in his blog post?
Let me just call this Pexels NC a minute. Ah, haha. Enable for callouts, external credentials, generate authorization header. And then I think, if I remember, I think I've done this before now. I think if I remember correctly, I might not have wanted that ticked actually. If we go back here then to external credentials now, that has our, yep, and this has that there. So if we go back, let me just go back here.
Oh, I missed this paragraph. Okay. Named credentials no longer store the credentials themselves. Instead, a new external credential record holds the authentication details, while the named credential retains the endpoint being accessed. So that must be what's being deprecated or being end of lifed, which is you need both. The named credential contains the endpoint, and then
so
the external. Yeah. Okay.
So I think the only thing we've got to figure out is how we generate that header. So it's because it's generating an authorization header. It could generate an authorization header for us, but it doesn't really detail how it's going to build that out.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm going to save this and let me just try this a sec. Oops. Because if this runs at least, we can see if it's got any auth issues at all.
Yep.
So, yeah. So now it says it's unauthorized, which is good. That works for us. So, if I do
HTTP 401 earlier today.
Say again?
I said I was just getting an HTTP 401 earlier today. So.
I know. It's the best.
Very
best
exciting.
One. So if I do request.get header, I try and get authorization. Let's just see what it's generated for us. If only we had some sort of logging framework in place that would allow us to. Yeah. See, look, it's put null in there, so it's not actually giving us anything in there.
And what happens when you did set header? Did you try that? I was poking around in docs and.
So I think if I do set header though, I'm gonna have to. I can't get that credential out anywhere. I can't get it from. So I think there's a way in name credentials of using. Credentials. There's a way, and you know, one of these things where like it starts coming back to you that you've done this before, but you cannot remember where.
Yep, all the time.
I'm in that position right now. So yeah, thanks for those that are still following along, and I hope you're learning something here, like we are. Web services. Here we go. Look at this client ID. Yes.
What's interesting? Oh, there we go. Named credentials recipes. Okay.
Store an API key as a parameter in a principal. Okay. So we have that. Using API keys in a custom header. Ooh. On the external custom headers, click new and yes.
Connect API external credential input equals new connect API external credential input.
So I think we've got it. I think I might have it. I think I might have it. So we don't want. I'm going to edit and I'm just going to undo these for a second. I don't want that. I don't want it to generate that off the bat for us. If we go into the external credential and we go into custom headers here, and
Apex recipes has a whole bunch of code around retrieving an external credential, which is interesting. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So external credential. So the API key. So credential. The container name is authorization. No. The container name is then going to be. So I'm just checking I'm doing it the right way. Container name is going to be authorization. Yeah, because I got that wrong. Authorization pixels. 1 minute. Oh, container name. Why have we got this concept of a container name that doesn't really exist anywhere? Oh no, that'd be it. So it'd be .pixels and then .authorization. I think. I might need to do that because I feel like that's correct. Okay.
Whoa.
It's got 2 thumbs and knows how to follow some documentation finally. This guy. Right. So, shall I talk through what the...
Yeah, I think we definitely need to revisit that. That was a lot of hunting around. So
yeah. So I have done this before when external credentials... So I can tell a story about this briefly. In version 2 of one of my books, I had this same headache of trying to figure out how the heck to do this. And I got down there in the end. But yeah, it's a lot of new... It's not... I don't think it's the most well-documented thing in the world, is what I'm going to say. But there is some documentation here that I will just post in there for anyone. Custom header docs. So let's go back here. So what we've got is we have a named credential called Pexels NC, Pexels named credential, that has our URL on it. And we can give it the option to generate our authorization header for us if we wish.
Okay.
We don't want it, to do that because we don't want it to have that basic setup for us. Like we're using a custom header here in effect. If we were using a standard header, so step back. Basic authorization. We are not technically using basic authorization here. We are using a custom API key for authorization.
Okay.
HTTP basic authorization would have a username and password in there, not just the single item.
Right.
So this is technically custom. So we don't want it to generate the authorization header, but we do want to allow formulas in that header because we're going to use a formula ourselves in a minute. Okay.
Got it. Okay. So that replaces the line, the set header line, essentially. Is that's the
sort of this line actually replace that line there. Well, that Pexels NC actually replaces
what?
this. That
Right.
gives us the URL endpoint.
Right.
Okay. And when we created that, we had to say which external credential we wanted to use. You have to do this in reverse, weirdly enough. So
you have to first create your external credential.
Yes, and then think this is useless, and then you suddenly realize it's not useless. You just have to do the right stuff before it. So we created our external credential called Pexels, and our external credential is where we actually store our credentials. In that, we have added a principal in, which is our value we want to store, right? And so for principals, you can have ones that are for this because it's custom, it's just named. But you could have one in there, like a named means it's the same for everyone, right?
Yep.
If you're doing more standard authorization, you can have them per user.
Right.
We have created one, and it has the terrible parameter name of authorization. We should have called this admin key, user key, something else, but we were learning as we went here.
And we thought it meant something else.
we thought it meant something else. And what we've done is we created for this principle, this group called authorization, we have created a parameter called authorization. And that's our value there. So it's the name and the value pair, authorization, and the key.
And in this case, the value, did you just copy the actual key in there?
Yeah, that's just where that's the key. And
I missed that as I was poking around at the same time. So
sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm reiterating, just that's all.
Cool. So that's stored securely there. And we've given access via a permission set. So to remind on the permission set, I think I don't need to view all now. I think it's just create and edit. So I'm going to just wind that one back.
Yeah.
So we've given access, create and edit access there via the permission set. And there was also the external credential principal access, which we've given access to here. So we can see that key. Okay. So with all of that, we have then gone in and said, right, let's create a custom header for our external credential. And in that custom header, we have said that we're going to call this authorization, and it's going to have the value. So it's the key is authorization, and the value is the credential. So this is where the formula piece. Remember that checkbox I checked that comes
credential's
in.
a global variable.
Yep, Pexels is the name of our credential here, and then authorization is the name. We can, because we can only see one principal. That's the only principal it will use.
Yeah,
it is using the name of this authorization parameter here.
Right,
and putting that in there, and so it's going to do our key value thing of authorization and the authorization key. The fact that we have used the words authorization 10 times here does not help this. And so when we come back in here, we do not need that
learning
line.
By repetition.
Yes. We do not need that line. And here we just have our call out to Pexels name credential, which is the one that uses our, which provides our URL. And the authorization will be done for us because that name credential will look up to the external credentials and see what we've got. And that is it. That should work for us.
Right.
So
interesting.
When we then run this, so I'm just going to get rid of, so I'm going to change this to like 62. Okay.
And just so going back to what you just got rid of. So once you run set endpoint and set method, were you successfully able to get the authorization header value? No, it wasn't surfaced.
No, it's only surfaced on send.
Once you send it.
Yeah, so I think it's populated on send.
Which, like maybe that could be helped with like a logging framework. Like,
well, I think it's also
what was actually sent.
Well, yeah, I think it's. I think it won't be because I think it's secured. So I think that it's like unless the logging framework can literally inspect the HTTP call out as it happens at a deeper level,
That'd be
I,
interesting to see.
I hope that it can't, because Salesforce, I assume, are doing this so that nobody could inspect that key.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I just think, like, I appreciate that. I also appreciate that if you were debugging why something wasn't working, seeing what that actually said would actually be helpful. So I see both
yeah.
points of view.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, what I would say to most people is, if I'm debugging something, like, and so if I'm debugging some code as I go along and I'm just developing on it, I'll typically just write my HTTP requests like out in full to check
Mhm.
everything's going. And then if I'm dealing with things that are like Salesforce specific problems here, like what I'll do is I'll hit a local Postman endpoint rather than
Okay.
the full API, so I can then actually inspect it. You
That
can
makes
use
sense.
Postman, like you can route your request through Postman as well,
Mhm.
and through, is it OSWAP? There's another tool. It's one of the tools that the security review team require you to use.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
checking. Anyway, we have our new picture back. We have two wonderful cowboys.
That is like, what is that?
This down here, it looks
Yeah.
like a big ball of, I don't know, like
Yeah.
some.
There's
I mean,
so many questions I have about this picture.
it's definitely been dug up. So, I mean, if it's making you uncomfortable, we can try a
No,
different
no,
one.
I just I'm fascinated. Who are they? What is that? What are they holding? Are those shovels? They don't look like shovels. They look like it could be paddles, but they're in a desert. Like, I could go
Ah,
on
yes,
forever.
the well-known paddles. Here we go. It's a pretty little cup.
Oh, yeah, it's like a little water dipper.
Yeah. So we
Nice.
have 9 minutes left, Peter. So I think let's just summarize what we've done and where we got to today. For
Yeah,
those who are watching.
this was quite the journey.
Yeah. So
But what I'll say is, like, I like the last time I tried to just use a named credential to do just kind of an authorization header, a API key authorization header, it was not straightforward either. So it's interesting that Salesforce, like, they support this, but they don't really make it easy. And I think that's probably because so many integrations aren't just, I've got a service that's going to serve me up some data. There's some random data, there's some further authorization that's needed, like a jot or something else. Anyway, so just a bit of an aside
no,
of kind of what's been going on through my mind as we went through this, and the last
because
time I tried to do it. So
you were probably using a legacy credential, I
yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
Like this I always found much easier, because you just say, well, the identity type is name principal. The auth protocol is just, you could just say no auth,
hmm
and then you would allow that, and then I don't think you could do custom headers. In fact, in this,
there was a way that you could somehow not have the API key in the code, like, basically
just
that's what I had been trying to do. But anyway, yeah.
yeah. I mean, so I'm just going to quickly just save this, because often there's lots of stuff that comes up after you press save on
hmm
these screens, but apparently not
Or
in
not.
this case. Yeah, there we go. Well, that was useless. Oh, it might be password. Yeah, so like you'd need a username and a password,
hmm
but like you don't really want them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like there are. I mean, it's definitely more flexible than it was, for sure. And I think
Yeah.
that flexibility is where difficulty comes in all the time.
Well, an
If you
identity, like, so one of my clients is an identity provider, and there's a whole lot of things going on right now in the identity space around, like, FAPI, and FAPI 2 is a new standard, and kind of the next iteration of OpenID Connect and OAuth. So there's some major changes going to shore up, because I mean, OAuth is over 10 years old, and we're still, or OAuth 2.0 is over 10 years old, and we are still basically using it in the way that the web was used 10 years ago, which, like, really is kind of at the cusp of mobile devices and predates, like,
yep,
so much that we use today on the web and take for granted. So those standards are a bit creaky, and it's no wonder that the identity team are like kind of moving the identity features in the direction that supports the standards better. So
Yeah. What's FAPI?
FAPI's FAPI. So
FAPI, FAPI. There we go.
it is a secure implementation of OAuth that's opinionated, so that there's certain standards that are applied when you have high security and or high regulatory uh, uh, needs for an integration. It initially stood for financial API,
Mm,
because it was sort of initiated by the FinServ kind of technology community. But it turns out when you build identity for financial institutions, there's a whole bunch of other um, sectors in technology that need just as secure,
yeah.
integration and identity. And so they've kind of gone away from, they want people to not think of it as financial. They want to think of it as secure OAuth, essentially. So
Interesting.
actually, there's a software engineering daily episode we can include in the show
Yeah.
notes if people want to learn more about that type of identity. It wasn't me; it was but somebody who I work with, who's one of the standards contributors on FAPI. So
Okay, cool. Well, yeah. So I think what I was saying was I think that the flexibility, like to handle all these different mechanisms, is where the complexity comes from. Because like
yeah,
that's the problem with
totally.
anything.
Yeah,
It's really easy to build something that just does one simple route, but when you've got all these different options, that's when it becomes hard.
yeah.
So we've got our
We do the
external
summary.
credentials.
Yeah,
Yeah. So where we are now, then we have our external credential set up. We have our name credential set up, and we now have the ability to make a call out from Apex with a different API key. So I'm going to recycle my API key for a start in a minute, to be able to be used when we want it to be used, and we
right.
can change them, update them, and cycle them as we want. We're able to get the JSON body back from our image API. And yeah, we've seen how you can make a basic call out. I mean, it's nothing great, nothing grand. I think we did a lot of learning there about external credentials and how that comes together.
Yeah,
But
and
I
we have
think
no hard coded secrets in our code.
this is very, very true and very, very good. We have no secrets at all. So, or no hard coded ones anyway. And yeah, so I think next episode. Next episode is going to be a special episode in 2 weeks' time, isn't it, Peter?
That's right. Yeah. Should we give a little teaser?
Go for it. You feel free to give a little teaser. You can
Okay,
tease.
so uh, one of the things that I think both Paul and I have enjoyed is kind of bringing some of the things that maybe put off non-coders about code to non-coders.
Mhm.
And we're going to do that next or 2 weeks time with Sokol. And we've got a guest who's going to come along, and we're going to be in person, like all of us in the same room. And we're going to come up with some ways that, how would an admin get to that data versus how would you get to that data with Sokol?
So yeah, so this is going to be we're going to be in person, which is going to be cool for a change. We're hopefully going to be so we have someone who's going to come along and sit with us as a third party to help us chat Sokol, and I'm really excited to have her on the stream as well.
Yep.
And yeah, it may be in collaboration with other groups as well. We're just finalizing and ironing out some details there. So
There we
watch
go.
this space. So yeah, very
Excellent.
excited to be. I mean, it's going to be one of the few times that Peter and I get to sit in a room together, and you'll at the end of it, Peter will be very, very glad to be free of me.
What's funny is the shirt I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we got these shirts?
Yes. Very first Dream LA.
The very first Stream OLA.
Is it the one that if you took your hoodie off and it turned around, does it say what I think it says on the back? What the fuck?
There we go.
So this was the invention of was it? I feel it was Inez that came up with that.
I don't know. I mean, I only heard somebody from Dream OLA was like, "Hey, we're gonna have this Q&A bar at the first Dream OLA. Do you want to sit there for an hour?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?"
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I was there for an hour, and I was probably just sat chatting with you for an hour, or probably something.
Not a lot of people came by, but we were sort of separate from the expo part.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been an issue. I guess they keep doing it. I haven't been to Dream LA since 2019. But yeah.
Yeah, I've not been for a couple of years, but yeah. So it was either Inez or Carolina, one of the two,
Okay.
because I know it was
That sounds like it.
I know it was, yeah, I know it was someone who was living in Britain who was very used to, the saying what the, and kind of loved the wordplay of it. So yeah, love the Dream LA t-shirt. So yeah, it's been I mean, like, it's not often we get to hang out together, being so far apart.
Should be fun. Should be fun. Yeah, really excited. And I feel like I got to go now and like read more about external credentials.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm so in 2 weeks' time we'll be doing a special episode. So please come along still and see. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along, contributing, chatting with us, hanging out. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, like we did. And for those who are watching along on the repeat, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have anything else you'd like us to do, please let us know in the comments below.
Thanks everybody, and thanks
Everyone.
to Kosi who just like
Yeah.
messaged us. So
Welcome,
thanks everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.